If you want to be successful in growing a sales team, you have to differentiate yourself in the market. There are 5 key strategies that you must complete in order to make that happen. So stick with me.
Welcome to the Launch Capsule. With your host, James DuBos. Buckle up because your launch capsule begins now.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey, this is Jim DuBos, and welcome to this episode of the Launch Capsule. Today we're going to be talking about differentiating yourself in the market and why it is crucial to standing out, attracting customers, and ultimately maintaining this competitive edge. So I want to give you 5 strategies to achieve this. The first is going to be talking specifically around what makes you unique, your unique value proposition, or as it's referred to, the UVP. You as the entrepreneur owner probably have a clear idea in your mind of what this means. But now, because you're going to be adding team members, you have to be able to clearly define and communicate what makes your product or service different and, quite frankly, better than your competitors. So how do you do this? First, focus on the benefits that matter the most to customers. It could be your speed, your customization, your quality, your pricing, your reliability. Whatever those core elements are that matter the most to the customer community that you serve, you need to be able to clearly articulate. So if I'm a new account manager or sales resource coming into your organization for the first time, you need to clearly articulate why and what those key benefits are to customers. Why do customers choose you over the competition? The next strategy to be clear on is the customer experience. What is the customer experience now, currently, in the business? How is it going to maintain an exceptional level of service as you grow? So you have to have clear in your mind, how am I going to maintain a level of customer service that is exceptional as I grow and build the company? The first thing I will tell you is to be clear on the elements of your processes that are personalized and proactive. Because in the end, customers are not doing business with companies, they're doing business with people. They want to feel like they matter. They want to build trust relationships with you individually, not just with your company. So things like, do I make it easy to place orders? What's my delivery communications like? Do I have hassle-free problem resolution? Those things matter to customers. In a way, what you're trying to do is create this consultative relationship between your employee community and your customer community. And you're treating them like valued people because they are, not just a sales transaction. The last thing I'll say is, sometimes I see entrepreneurs thinking about loyalty programs, and as customers spend money, they generate points and these types of things. And look, we all use them, right? Whether it's 2% on our credit card or airline miles or whatever those things are. But in a smaller organization or where you're just building out an account team, I think your loyalty program can take on a slightly different view. And let me give you an example. So as certain customers of ours were committing larger and larger volumes of transactions with us, what we would do is find out what were the things that mattered to them as an organization. Things like, some customers had an affinity for a local food bank or a women's shelter. Well, we were able to say, hey, you know what? We're going to make investments in the things that they care about, that they've communicated as something that matters to them, and do it on their behalf. In a way, it was a way for us as a community organization to build goodwill. We were participating in building joint goodwill together. And so that's another way to think about loyalty. I have a story where sometimes we would do these things, we would call them lunch and learns. And so we offered to do a lunch and learn for a customer. And the customer was like, look, that sounds great, but instead of doing that, how about we get a food truck and take it down to this location in town where we know that there's a lot of people who are hungry. And I was blown away. I was like, that's exactly what we need to do. Because we can talk about your solution and how we solve problems and do all those things anytime. We don't need a lunch and learn to do that. Let's go do that for the community instead. Tremendous. But it was a way to build loyalty, to represent loyalty back to the customer. The third strategy that I like to talk about is leveraging technology and innovation, having this innovative mindset at all times inside of the organization, using automation, now artificial intelligence, to streamline operations and improve efficiency in any of the processes that you deploy on behalf of the customer. I think it's important to realize, specifically when we're talking about customer experiences and adding technology and innovation to it, is there are multiple touch points along a transactional lifetime. Those touch points are times when the customer interacts with us and they get to determine, is it a positive or negative experience? And so what you want to do is make sure that those touch points are all positive, as many as possible, because you're subliminally setting up in the customer's mind, I want to do this transaction again because it was all positive. Every time I communicated with them, I had a positive experience. There are things like online tools that you can do. Can I look at my quotes? Can I approve quotes? Can I do design reviews if I have that type of a element in my business? Are there some form of customer self-service portals? All of those things matter. I like to remind my entrepreneurs that you need to use, I'll say, non-competitive peers. Communicate with those peers in other markets that are outside of geography to learn trends and the way that they are solving those problems. Many times in my own entrepreneurial journey, I was communicating with another entrepreneur who was outside of my geography and how they were solving problems, what were the trends that they were seeing in their market. And then I would take that knowledge back and apply it to my own situation and say, okay, how can I use what I've learned to make my company better? The last thing is fourth strategy is this investment in digital marketing, social media engagement. Part of it is a visibility, but part of it is this brand story, which is really the fourth strategy. The brand story is critical for any new account team member or sales team that you're building in the organization. You know, as the entrepreneur owner, what is your value? You know your story. I used to communicate it this way with my teams. You need to have two things in your hip pocket at all times. One, a 20-second elevator pitch, and two, a 2-minute historical timeline view when you have a longer opportunity to give that message, because it allows you to first very quickly communicate why we exist, who we exist for, and why we're better. That's the 20-second. And then the 2-minute timeline is the historical view of the company, why we founded it, and it allows me the opportunity to integrate the unique value propositions that we bring to the market. Those two things you have to have in your hip pocket, and you have to be prepared to communicate those things to your new team members that you're onboarding. Now we get into the fourth strategy, building a brand story and communication. So developing this compelling brand story that's going to resonate ultimately with the customer community that you're serving, as well as the new customers you're trying to attract. The key thing here is consistent messaging, branding, visual identity. Those things matter because people will subliminally connect. Think of it like when you see the golden arches, you automatically think McDonald's. Why? Because of the golden arches. It's a visual connection that you have with that logo. So being consistent and being repetitive is going to build that muscle memory on behalf of the customers and the community that you're trying to serve. I like to do two things in this brand story. One is to always present yourself as a thought leader. You must be considered a thought leader. Why? Because we all want to participate with winners. We want to be associated with the very best in that market. And it's very important, it's critical that your customer community and those that you're trying to attract see you being represented in that way. That has to be part of the UVP. The way you do that could be through blogs, could be through webinars, could be through events. I also think it's very effective to use customer success stories to demonstrate your capability and expertise by demonstrating how you worked with customers to solve their real-world business problems. And the last piece of this is really strategic partnerships and community engagement. You have to collaborate with community businesses to expand your reach. You get involved with things like local business organizations, trade shows, networking events. All those things are good. But I also think it's important that you sponsor community initiatives, because what you're really doing is building this depository of goodwill. When people see you living and working and playing in the same community that they're in, they connect with you on a personal level because you care about the same things they care about. Very critical. And the last element I'll mention in this strategic partnership area is the key supplier and providers. As we grew our sales team and our volume increased, we needed to have stronger supplier relationships and be able to collaborate and communicate with those suppliers in a very effective way, because we knew we were going to need them in certain moments. Otherwise, I would not have been able to deliver in some of the places that we were trying to grow. So building that key relationship with suppliers is critical for the sales success, because you're increasing volume. You want to be able to make sure your suppliers are ready to handle that volume. So these are 5 strategies to communicate a differentiation, right? And to prepare you to grow successfully with a sales team. I have other episodes where we're going to talk about a lot of other topics. Things like, what are the expectations for account team members? What are the reportings that we need to set up? So this will be a journey through this series of podcasts to get you to a place where we have covered all of the elements necessary for you to be successful in growing your business by establishing a very strong and competent sales team. So until the next time, I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you on the other side. Have an awesome, awesome day.
That's a wrap for today's episode of The Launch Capsule. The Launch Capsule. With your host and mentor to success, James DuBos. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share.